Welcome back, everybody, to me complaining about the Wheel of Time. Yes, we're back in complaining mode, and we're talking about The Gathering Storm, Book 12, chapters 20 to chapter 30, and, yeah, shit goes down. The question is, am I happy with it or not? Let's find out, shall we? Haha, cheers. Alright, so what do we get in these chapters? We get a lot of Matt, for once, which in general is good. We get a little of Trakand, Gavin, we get a little of Perrin/Fail, and we have some stuff going down with Rand. Now that's obviously the big one that we need to talk about, like event-wise. But it's not that interesting, really. I feel we will see. So let's start. Let's start with the easy bit. Let's go through the Matt storyline, right? So Matt goes and rides into town. He wants to go drinking and gambling to prove to himself that he's still the old man and the old boy, and marriage has not made him responsible. Yeah, we'll talk about that. And then everyone in the village goes crazy at night and kills each other, and then they wake up normal in the morning and repeat that all the time. And it's weird, and yeah. All right. So let's look at the good bits and the bad bits. First, the first chapter of those is completely unnecessary. The A Broken Road Upon a Broken Road, chapter 20, is completely unnecessary. You could just drop that, because it's all about like Matt riding along, pissing off Aes Sedai, talking with Talmanas, trying to prove to himself that just because he got married doesn't mean that he's now obviously giving up everything and so forth, which... Look. If you want to make jokes about like how marriage changes men, then that's obviously your prerogative. I know Brandon Sanderson is married and supposedly knows what marriage is like. I am no longer married, so maybe I forgot all about that. But it feels a bit cheap, because what it does is this like, man, bros kind of talks like, oh, I will have to give up everything that's fun because now I'm married now. That's not how it is. That's not how it has ever been. I mean, I hope so. But that's not how it should be. And having that whole conversation, like, I don't know, waltz out in, like, dragged out into, like, a whole chapter is not really good. I just, it's too long, and the humor just falls flat unless you're into, like, late 90s, early 2000s rom-coms from the US, I guess, which... Come to think of it, maybe that's the problem there. However, there's a further problem there, and that comes in the next chapter about Matt. It's like a later one, it's like chapter 28, 27, 28, something like that. That's called The Tipsy Gelding. First of all, props for making a really cool Lord of the Rings joke there, reference there, like prancing pony, tipsy gelding. I like that. That's cool. And it's one of the things that I appreciate about... Brandon Sanderson. I'll say this right now, while I'm not a fan of his writing, as far as I know, so far, and I have like all kinds of issues with the guy, what I've always felt, and I absolutely appreciated about him, is Brandon Sanderson comes across as very authentic and very enthusiastic when it comes to fantasy in general. I believe the guy loves these things. And I believe and trust, I believe him when he puts in a Tolkien joke that he'll be extremely happy about it, getting away with putting a Tolkien reference into like Wheel of Time. I mean, I can imagine him just sitting there and chuckling about it. And I'm good with that. That's fine. That's really cool. The chapter itself, we'll talk about the rest of it later, but the main thing that I want to point at here is that we have that conversation with Matt and Tom. Apparently now they realized again that Bail Domon also knew about that stupid tower, and they didn't need, you know what I mean. And Tom should have still also known about it, but he's an old man. We've heard about that. Point is, they're talking about that plan to free Moiraine, and they're also talking about the good old times and all of this stuff. And then Tom is like, well, Matt, you're getting all responsible and stuff. What changed you? And Matt is like, marriage, I suppose. And see, here's a problem. And the problem there is, Matt has always been a very responsible character. There's like one scene in the entirety of the Wheel of Time where Matt is really acting irresponsibly. That is in Eye of the World, in Berlon, when he throws, is it dung or tomatoes or something? He throws shit at like white cloaks. Oh, he shoots it with a sling, I think that's the point. Yeah, whatever. That's in Berlon, in like the beginning of Eye of the World. That's the only time Matt, in an actual story where we see him do stuff, acts irresponsibly. Yes, he seems to have cornered a badger at the beginning in the first chapter of Eye of the World, but, you know, true. After that, Matt never acts irresponsibly. He even cares for his men. He cares for the Band of the Red Hand. He very much cares about Oliver all the time, all the way back to when he first meets Oliver in... Is that Fires of Heaven? Possibly. I keep forgetting. Around that time, right after, you know, the Battle for Kyrian, which I assume was somewhere in that... No, it might have been Lord of Chaos, the beginning of Lord of Chaos. Anyway, as soon as he meets Oliver and drags him with him, we always have these, like, him worrying about, like, how Oliver's growing up in the army and all these bad things. Matt has always cared about people. He may have been a bit more, you know, jokey and stuff, and not as dour as Rand or Perrin. But Rand has always been a responsible person and cared about people. We even have people saying, yeah, Matt is a rascal, but if he gives his word, he will keep his word. He has always been that person, so that whole claim just feels weird. And it comes back to the fact that we get told that Matt is, you know, living it up and drinking and dicing all the time. And yeah, he's drinking and dicing. But when it comes to, say, women, it's like... Yeah, he's stealing kisses. That's what we get told. There's one scene where Matt dances the entire night with that one tavern girl that actually gets a name shortly before they leave on their trip to wherever they're going back at the time, right? And that's all of it. And he's only dancing. I was like, yeah, you can obviously argue that Robert Jordan was too prudish to say, oh, and he fucked her. But maybe it just never really happened. And Matt is still possibly a virgin, because we don't know if he had, like, actually went deeper with, you know, Tuan. So who knows at this point. But yeah, see, and this is sort of my point, my problem there is, like, everyone making fun of him is like, oh, you're not getting responsible and grow up and stuff. And it's like, there is not much growing up there, because, like, Matt has always been in his way, very responsible person for the people that he cares about. You know, he's doing all that stuff. He's running after Elaine and Egwene in Dragon Reborn to save them or, like, help them and all of this shit. And everyone knows that, or should know that. So having that whole thing... It's just like one of those. Why make such a big deal of out of something that just doesn't exist? It's like Matt has never been irresponsible. Is the point here? And I feel that's the problem, because if we have this whole idea that Matt at some point has to accept his responsibilities, face up to the fact that he is kind of linked to Rand and Perrin and has to do these things, and not just, like, run away from everything in order to, you know, not get caught and just get caught anyway. If that big turnaround will come at some point, it will feel hollow or not as powerful as it could be, because it has never really been that bad. So yeah, but let's talk about the other bit, the weird pattern thing. Because, yeah, the scene in itself is kind of okay. We have Matt ride into town, and the mayor tells them they have to be gone by nightfall. Obviously, shit goes wrong, and all the villagers turn into, well, homicidal maniacs and start killing each other and also attacking Matt and gang. They survive, they come back, they find out that that happens every single night, and no one knows why. So Matt is like, well, all right, let's go. And there's like a bunch of things to be talked about here, because it's very easy to compare this scene in, I forgot the name of the town, because who fucking cares? Something hat or whatever. Has almost German name. Tiefenstadt? Whatever, that place. It very much is an analog to the Perrin walking into a town in Knife of Dreams. Was it Knife of Dreams? I think it was already Knife of Dreams. Maybe it was the one after, the one before, Crosses of Twilight. Perrin walking into that town where the dead are walking, right? It's like the group comes into a place and things are not right, and what they have to do and what they have to learn and accept is that they can't change it and just walk on. Did Matt have to learn that lesson? I don't know. I thought he was already the guy who did not have to feel bad about that shit and has to learn to actually care about things again. And I'm like, I don't know. Plus, you can see a difference between Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson here, because the scene in Über, in I guess Knife of Dreams, whatever, that scene is actually really creepy and has a lot of atmosphere. It works wonderful there, and without any combat, without any action, it has this creeping horror atmosphere. And Brandon Sanderson goes for action. We get like long descriptions of combat in the streets that are okay. They're not super brilliant, but you know what? It's fine. So what we do, or what happens here, and I feel this is partly what Brandon Sanderson does compared to Robert Jordan, is we exchange atmosphere with action. And action is easier to read, and action is easier to create, I feel. Because the problem is, like, atmosphere, while not as tough or difficult as humor, is still something that relies heavily on the reader. It's like you have to feel that atmosphere. And I'm sure there's people out there who read that Über scene and are like, whatever, it's boring. Why is nothing happening? I assume that those people exist, probably a lot of them. Atmosphere which is why horror is so personal, like just like what's it called? Humor, because those are personal emotions tied to our personal experiences, the things that we are afraid of and so forth. That's how atmosphere, especially in horror, works. Action, however, does not require that. You use, fast-paced like scenes, quick cuts, short sentences, and more or less descriptive violence. You're set. And chances are, it feels like there's a lot happening, even though there's not much happening really. Like in story terms, there's nothing happening really. But it's easy to pull off, and it's easy to pull off in a way that will not look or read shitty. Yes, there are extremely well done action sequences that are just like really, really over the top good. I guess Kalam fighting through like these ongoing running battles at the end of both Deadhouse Gates, but mostly at the end of Bone Hunters is an example for having a running battle in a city that feels extremely well timed and choreographed and stuff. This one is not like that. This one is not too bad. The way of Matt coming back for his man, which once again, Matt is a responsible person. He would have done the same thing the first time he actually, had responsibility for another person. You see my problem, right? Which is where I would say that Brandon Sanderson is definitely able to pull these things off. It racks up the page count. It doesn't hurt. It's easy to read, but it doesn't really add new dimensions or anything. It's like, yeah, we already know the pattern is kind of fucked up at this point. Weird things will happen. So, yeah. It just like repeats something that we have seen before, just in a slightly different way, without adding new information and new story points, character development, or anything. The only information we get dropped there is that someone is looking for Perrin and Matt. And we can like start asking ourselves which Forsaken is handing out those, pictures asking for information of Matt and Perrin. I'm sure we'll find out. I'm not sure how many are still on the field actually at this point. I mean, around that area, could be anyone. My guess it's someone like Moghedien on, the Orders of Moridin, because she seems to be the kind of person that would go for like this sort of attack. Whatever. It's what happens there. We're good. That's all the information basically. Someone's looking for Matt and Perrin. But we get like 3 chapters dealing with that whole stuff, without nothing really in there. I mean, the whole like Matt gambling for like supplies for his troops is another one of those things. We have seen that shit happen before again and again and again, and it doesn't get better with Matt pulling that one off this time around. No. I am, as they say, not convinced. All right, what else is going down? Well, we have a bit of Gavin stuff. Gavin wandering into camp, pulling like a cool "I'm better than you" sword fighter stunt to meet what's his name, Gareth Bryn. He kind of convinces him of stuff, and they find the runaway Aes Sedai from the tower, drag her in front of other Aes Sedai. They talk about stuff, and cockroaches erupt from the tent, which is another one of those. Yeah, we've had the guy puking up beetles. Why go for this one? We know things are bad at this point. It just feels not really that interesting, really. Well, I guess that's where we are at this point. They know now that there's a way into Tar Valon, that like side exit that conveniently everyone has forgotten about, and that Runaway obviously told them about. So whenever Gavin and other people will go to rescue Egwene, they can use that door. Great. We have to set these things up to make sure that it will happen later on. I think it's one of those things where like Robert Jordan would not have done that. Robert Jordan would just like maybe have dropped an obscure hint that people afterwards will claim is great foreshadowing. It's not, but whatever. Brandon Sanderson like has to spell out every single step of this thing and make sure that everyone is on board and knows what will happen in the future. And I'm bored by it, but whatever. I assume there's a market for it, is what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, that's all we got there. Let's look at the next thing that is not very interesting, or sort of, or wait, maybe. And that is Aviendha. Aviendha finally figures out what her lesson to learn was with the Wise Ones, and that is to stand up for herself and no longer accept all the bullying of the Wise Ones. Great lesson. In general, yeah, don't get bullied, fuck them. Immediately. I'm okay with that. I think it was overdone overall. The process of her learning was kind of overdone because we got it all from her perspective, and her asking herself and asking herself and asking herself, and then getting pissed off at Min for some reason, and then going for it. It's like, yeah, whatever. Could have been done quicker, could have saved us a bunch of pages, made this like shorter to read, because it was repetitive as fuck. The overall idea, yeah, I'm fine with that. The general message I'm fine with. If you turn it into some sort of libertarian nonsense, then I might have to disagree, but so far I'm fine with it. Yeah, there's another Perrin scene, that like the Ember and Ash one. Completely unnecessary. You can just drop the entire thing. It will not go anywhere. You could just like drop an entire chapter again. It's just like, yeah, it doesn't add anything. Yeah, they're feeling bad about like having those people killed, but at the end of the day, it's Fael that's like, did I get him let parent kill Roland or not? It's like, there's these thoughts on how to say responsibility and honor and stuff, and I have feelings on the whole honor thing. It comes in different places again and again, where I feel that fantasy has a problem with honor, because there's other things that dignity and honor are not the same thing, and the focus on honor and cowardice are a huge problem with fantasy literature in general. But this is not the place to look at it. What we need to look at is really the whole Rand situation. So, what is the whole Rand situation? The whole Rand situation is the following. Semirog gets freed, puts the controlled Dominion band or whatever it's called on Rand, and forces Rand to torture and then kill Min, which he doesn't actually end up doing because he taps the true power. And, yeah. And then he gets pissed off that the Dominion band is still around and lashes out against Cadwayne and is now even darker and more evil. Well, not evil, but has lost more humanity, and we all need to pity poor fucker Rand because he's such a poor baby, such a crybaby. Oh, God, I hate that guy. Seriously. It's terrible. Anyway, let's look at the individual things in this storyline and why it sucks. Because it does suck, and a number of places. Let's start with the first one. The first one is, well, I don't know who to blame there. If it's Robert Jordan I have to blame for it, or if it's actually Brandon Sanderson I have to blame for it. But so Semirog gets freed by Shaidar Haram. And that's the problem. So she's like, oh, I got humiliated, it sucks, I don't want to be humiliated, it really sucks, I'm a poor girl, I got humiliated. And suddenly, Shaidar Haram is in her small cell, poof, her shielding is gone, and she can access the power again. It's like, yeah, great. And he's like, yeah, you suck, but you go and do your job again, and maybe you'll have like a one final chance. The usual talk that they usually give all the time. But whatever. And she walks out, and there's a bunch of Aes Sedai knocked out, and Elsa Penfell, who is apparently Black Aja, is like, oh, I want to serve you, great mistress, I want to serve you. And she walks behind her, and that's it. And this is the problem. This is the huge problem there. You have a Black Aja sister, Elsa Penfell, which we knew was Black Aja from, like, I don't know, 1 book before, 2 books before. Something like that, yeah. We knew she's Black Aja. So, why not make her do the whole thing and freeze Semirog? Why conjure up that fucker Shaidar Haram out of nowhere to snap his fingers and give the same one final chance talk? It's like, why the fuck? It's completely unnecessary. Makes Elsa as a character completely unnecessary. And why use a Deus Ex Machina if you don't need to? A competent writer would just actually sit down, come up with a plan that Elsa uses to freeze Semirog. Why not? It can't be that hard. Everyone is talking about that folk root tea and shit. It's like, yeah, walk by, give them some tea, make them, lose their ability to channel, bam, done. It's easy. I can think of it, for fuck's sake. I'm not bright. But we don't get that. Instead, we needlessly pull out that stupid fucking Shaidar Haram guy again for nothing. And that's what I mean. That's bad writing. That is bad plotting and bad writing, and could have been handled so easily without drawing in an extra character that we don't need, because we've seen that guy before and he sucks, and we know that he sucks, and he's more than just a murderer. But why? It really makes no sense, and it's just really bad plotting. We can just, like that shit. Alright, so there we go. Let's walk through it step by step. So then they show up. Elsa gives her, "You need to survive, Rand, until the last battle, and the easiest way for that is for you to be, chained by the Dark One." And then Semirog puts that thing on him, and forces him to use magic to torture Min, and he's like, whatever, there's nothing you can do to me, you can't give me pain, and she's like, I can make you give pain to Min, and that will hurt you a lot. Whatever. Alright. And then, Rand, out of nowhere, I guess it's because of the power of love, possibly, we don't care, he accesses the true power. And you know what? Fuck the true power. It's exactly that bullshit that Brandon Sanderson talks about in one of his lectures when he's like, "Oh, I made this mistake about Mistborn when suddenly Min can do something that I didn't." Is her name Min? Win. That's her name, right? It's in one of his lectures on fantasy writing. It's like, I made that mistake. I did not build up that part of the magic system before, and it just shows up for the first time in that scene, and it feels like cheating. If you have a hard magic system and all of that, so And it's exactly that kind of thing. Rand just pulls out that true power out of his arse, and suddenly he can use it. And yes, we know that, what's his name, Moradin can also access the true power, and it may be super dangerous, but we don't really know. And there's so much weirdness going on there. It feels like I've put Brand in that scene, and I need to come up with a way for him to free himself out of that whole thing. So what I'll do is I'll invent a new power that is stronger than the other two powers, and then I'll retrofit it in so people will understand it afterwards. And that's not good. That's not good writing. Yeah, maybe there has been the true power before. Also, the name is weird because, when Rand later thinks about it, it's it comes directly from the Dark One. So why is it called the true power and not just the dark power? Whatever. Also, if it comes directly from the Dark One, does using all of that dark power mean that you kind of sap the strength of the Dark One? Is that a possibility? We don't know. But we don't need to know because, the whole magic system doesn't make any sense in Wheel of Time, really. It's not good. My point is that Rand suddenly accesses this other power and, snaps the thing, and then he just balefires both Elsa and Semirog out of the pattern. Which, there we go. And yeah. And now he's even harder. He has not only iron, not only steel. No, he has to become Quendiar, which is even harder. And unbreakable, I guess. Whatever. See, I don't even know what to say at this point anymore. It's you could make all these things work out in a much better way. Build up to the true power thing in some other way. Give, we as the reader know that true power exists. Because we had those one or two hints when Moradin shows up somewhere. Apparently it gives him black flecks in the eyes that float around. Which sounds like, you've had a sort of laser treatment for cataracts, basically. Just saying. We know it exists as readers. Rand doesn't know. Rand just suddenly when he needs to, he can access it and then access it and then whatever. It could have been handled much better is what I'm saying. It's not completely bad, but it's still it kind of falls into that I need to get him out of something that I didn't, know how to get him out of, so I'll just use superpowers that I've just invented, and then in later chapters suddenly someone thinks about it and is oh, maybe that's it. Well done. Let's look at the next thing. Cadsuane shows up, is pissed off because Cadsuane's always pissed off at Rand because Rand is rude to her. And Rand banishes her because she did not keep the Dominion band or whatever it's called safe. And that's, once again, bad. That's bad writing. Look, if Rand wants to get rid of Cadsuane, he's got like 10,000 reasons to do so all the time because she's terrible. She behaves like an absolute dickhead. And, deliberately provokes him into all kinds of things. Like how she thinks she can make that guy laugh again is beyond me. But yeah. But the argument here is, unless he deliberately gave Cadsuane the order to destroy that thing. He said, keep it safe. So yeah, she kept it in a box with all kinds of words and stuff. Is that safe enough? Whatever. The reason that he finally pulls out to get rid of her is probably the weakest of the lot. And that, there's two options here. Either we're supposed to see that Rand is behaving irrationally, which, he's been doing all the time because he's Rand and he's a shitty character. Or someone was too lazy to come up with another good reason to get rid of Cadsuane for something later on. I don't know. But it literally is like, you're creating a situation there, or a threat, because Cadsuane seems to be, feel that it was her mistake that the thing got, stones. What was she supposed to do? She said, I'll keep it safe. She does it to the best of her abilities. And then, a Forsaken shows up. With the help of a very convenient Deus Ex Machina that was not even needed. So what? What was she supposed to do in that situation? So if her job was, actually put it somewhere else, what kind of, why is she keeping one of those with her? That's sort of the point there. It's like, is she actually not following Rand's orders? And it doesn't look like that. It looks more like, I need a reason to get rid of her to build up some needless drama for a later part of the book that could have just been ignored. And that's, I feel, the main issues with this whole part of the plot. Rand is now even darker and moodier, and he'll start wearing eyeshadow and dye his hair black any moment now. Mark my words. And then he'll put on a trench coat and hang out at the corners of Gothic parties and feel all moody and dark because the world is all against him and he has to bear this insane weight. Duty is heavier than a mountain. And give me a break, man. I don't know. It's just so bad. So the whole setup is, we get Semirog free to build another confrontation with Rand when he finally kills her, and then feels more pissed off. And the way we do that is, we're not using the one person who could have just done it easily. No, we teleport in, we beam in a supernatural being to just do that one thing, say the one sentence that they always say. They have said it to Missana, and I'm pretty sure that he has said it to Grendel as well at this point, Do all of that. Don't use the assets that we have on the spot. We then come to we then pull out a superpower that we haven't pulled out before. We then, not properly at least. And then we use all of that and a really stupid reason to get rid of Cadsuane. That's a really convoluted thing to do. And it could have been streamlined in so many ways. But I guess we don't get that kind of stuff. But it fills more pages this way, and we can exaggerate the drama. All right. There we are. Not really anything really interesting. Next one is, the other, smaller bits and pieces, right? Gavin is has to decide on whose side he really is on, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Why do we need an entire chapter of him understanding that he has to choose sides because he's one of the people with power and they may have to take decisions, whereas the poor peasants down there, the soldiers and everyone else, they don't rise to the heights of a true leader because they don't have the guts to take actual decisions. They are lazy and comfortable in their position of following orders. But you, Gavin Trakund, are a true leader. You need to make that choice. What a bullshit situation. Anyway, so we have that chapter. It doesn't do anything really. We have the short chapter. Oh, I kind of forgot to talk about the Sheriam chapter. Another one that is really unnecessary and stupid and could just be left out, right? So we now get the official confirmation that Shiriam is obviously also Black Aja, and either, I guess, possibly, Misana shows up and tells her something, that she has to collect all those Dreamlands talismans, and obviously Shiriam does so. And then we have a quick scene of, more Egwene sitting in a cell now, talking to people that are come visiting her and treat her basically like she's already boss of the entire place. Which they did before, so we could have dropped that part. We could have dropped the whole Shiriam trying to find the dream ter'angreal bit as well, unless we wanted to show that Shiriam is Black Aja before she gets, officially unmasked or something. The only positive thing in here, I feel, is Shiriam's motives to become Black Aja are literally the first time that any dark friend had good motivations. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that whole end of the world crap. That sucks. All I wanted to be is to be powerful within the White Tower, to be left alone, do my thing, and don't care about other people. That's what I wanted, and that was what I got promised. Obviously, I didn't get it because you don't deal with organized crime or terrorists and become get the things that you want. That's because those people are evil, and we need to know that they are evil. But yeah, that was the first time I got an actual good answer of why would someone actually turn to the shadow, as they say. First time. So yeah, I guess that's all we got in those chapters. I may have missed smaller bits and pieces. Oh yeah, right. Rand rides into into something. Oh, God, whatever. The main capital of. It's not Ebudar, it's something Baram, it's 2 words. But who cares? Into Aridoman in that city. Everyone is cheering. Aes Sedai are complaining about him, banishing Cadsuane. He's feeling bad. We all know that. He's feeling more suspicious. He talks to someone who's whatever, where's the king? They don't know either. And the chapter's over. And I'm like, yeah, what? How did that actually help the book? Why do we need an entire chapter of him once again going through the list of names? So we put all those names in again, that he feels bad for killing, all those women that he feels bad for killing. And yeah, whatever. All good. Nothing, no harm done in that chapter, but it just really doesn't do anything. So my verdict from yesterday still stands. This book is much longer than it needs to be because we create the semblance of things happening. We create the semblance of the story actually going forward. We create the semblance, Brandon Sanderson does, the illusion of urgency, but nothing really happens most of the time. I mean, apart from that whole scene with, the whole Rand getting even harder kind of thing, because that kind of changes his character. But the rest didn't really change anything with anyone. And that's kind of sad, really. That's kind of... So, yeah, my claim still stands. We would not have needed 3 books to tell this tale. At all. Alright, bad writing, bad plotting, mostly. Writing is solid, Brandon Sanderson does know how to use his limited vocabulary. That's what I give him, and a good Tolkien joke, that's also fine. The rest of it, mostly unnecessary. We'll see how the book will end. I guess we still have a White Tower to raid and shit like that. We'll see. All of that tomorrow. And, yeah. Hope you're having a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Until then, cheers.